What's going on, everybody? So in this video, I'm going to show you an inexpensive way to install a shed window. In my case, we're installing some front windows on my shed, and if you already have a shed, great. But if you don't and you need to learn how to build one, you can check out my previous videos in this series, which will show you how to frame the walls, how to install the siding, all that good stuff. So with that being said, let's check out how to build an inexpensive shed window. So I have the results right here. See? 99% of people agree that windows are overpriced. They're very expensive, and in my case, the windows are up high, they're out of reach, and their only real purpose is to let light through and be aesthetic. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm anti-window or anything crazy like that. And I installed actual windows on the sides of the shed where they actually needed an open-close function. And I'm gonna release that video in the next week or so. But for these windows on the front of the shed, we don't need a standard window, and we can save a lot of money by using acrylic or plexiglass instead. Let me show you how I did this. What we're gonna do is take 1.5 inch PVC trim, and we're gonna trim around each window. But there's a little bit of a trick, and here is what I mean. Okay, so we're doing the windows now, and we're gonna do a 1/2 inch reveal. So as you can see, I have a mark there, and then a mark there, and then I also marked down a 1/2 inch. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our piece of trim up here, and you can see we're gonna move it up to where it's a 1/2 inch down there, and then that line corresponds with a 1/2 inch overhang there. So we'll line it up on the top, and then we'll do the same thing on the bottom. So as you can see there, it's actually in pretty good shape. And there's that line, so we'll line it up there. And then we have our overhang, and we'll hit it. So if we take a look from the inside of the model, you can see that we have a 1/2 inch overhang around the entire edge of the window. This 1/2 inch overhang is gonna provide a surface that we can push our window panels into and that it can mount against. So as I mentioned in the field, you're gonna mark a 1/2 inch from the top and bottom of each window and then mark a 1/2 inch on each piece of trim. Then you're gonna install it in place as you're seeing on each side. I use screws, but you can use brad nails just as easily. You're gonna measure the distance a 1/2 inch up and a 1/2 inch from the bottom, cut the trim to size, and then mark the 1/2 inch. So here I am after field verifying the distance from both outside edges of trim, and then I'm installing the bottom and top pieces there. Now in hindsight, I probably would have left more of like a 3/4 inch or a 1 inch overhang. That would give me a larger surface to push my plexiglass against. But for now, we did a 1/2 inch. We learned from it, but just an FYI if you're gonna do this same method. And at this point, we have the trim installed with a 1/2 inch overhang on all 3 windows. And if you want the dimensions and the plans and the materials list for this exact shed, you can check out my shed build resources in the video description. And here's a look at the window trim installed from the inside. Now, although we framed these windows to be 2 foot 6.5 inch wide by 1 foot 2 inches tall, it's always a good idea to field verify each window opening so that we can cut our acrylic or plexiglass windows to the right size. So here I am checking the height, and then I'm gonna go and check the horizontal width of the windows, and after confirming them, I'm gonna go and actually cut my plexiglass acrylic windows to size. Now, I bought my acrylic panels from Amazon. They literally have a million options you can choose from. Here's the kind I bought. I bought 0.03 inch thickness, and honestly, that was too thin. I would go with something more rigid. This worked for me, but if I was gonna do it again, I would get something a bit thicker. So here I am measuring the length and width to fit my window opening. As you can see, the panel right now is blue because it has a protective film on top of it, but I guarantee you that it is absolutely 100% transparent. So I'm making the marks with a Sharpie, then I'm gonna transpose them with a straight edge. And by using the straight edge and the Sharpie, I'm able to give myself a nice straight cut line. Now, although these 0.03 inch panels are extremely flimsy and I would go thicker, the bright side is that you're able to cut these with scissors really easily. If you ended up going with a thicker acrylic panel, you're probably gonna need to use a straight edge and a utility knife to score and snap it, or you can cut it with a circular saw, is what I've seen people do. But in my case, I have the super thin panels, so scissors work just fine. So after cutting the panels, I'm performing a dry fit, and once I confirmed that everything looked good, I removed the protective film, and then it was basically time to install. you're gonna have this protective film on both sides of the acrylic panels. At least that's how it was for the ones I bought. So after pulling off the protective film, what I did is I took some liquid nails, and really any construction adhesive will do, probably something for the exterior since it's gonna be for a shed, but you're gonna put a bead of this adhesive around the entire perimeter of the shed window. Basically, you wanna put enough adhesive so that the acrylic panel is going to contact the overhang and then permanently be adhered to it, but you don't wanna put too much to the point where when you push the acrylic panel against the overhang, you're gonna have a bunch of the adhesive squeeze out that you're gonna have to wipe off later. So apply enough, but don't put too much. And I was holding the camera while I applied that adhesive, so give me a break on how messy it was. But now I'm taking the panel and I'm gonna put it in place and push it up so that it contacts the 1/2 inch overhang that we have on all 4 sides of the window. As you can see, I'm pushing with a little bit of pressure to make sure that that acrylic panel is fully set and pushed against the adhesive. Then I'm going on the outside of the shed and I'm gonna clean up any of the adhesive squeeze out that I have to make sure that's not gonna dry on the outside of the window and create a unprofessional look. After cleaning up any excess construction adhesive on the outside, make sure that the inside looks good as well. Now at this point, I moved on to the second window. I already applied construction adhesive here to the overhang, and then I put the panel in place, cleaned up any of the excess construction adhesive from the inside, then the outside, and then I went back and cleaned up any from the inside again. It's pretty iterative, but you don't want to have any excess glue stuck to your windows. It just looks bad. So here I am moving on to the third window. I'm cutting it to size just like we did for the other two, and then I'm dry fitting it in place just like we did before. Then I'm going to apply construction adhesive, as you can see me doing from the inside there. And here's a look at the bead of construction adhesive we applied to the 1/2 inch overhang from the inside view of the shed. As you can see, just a nice little bead around the entire perimeter. With the construction adhesive in place, it's time to take our panel and push it up against the 1/2 inch overhang while also embedding the panel in the construction adhesive to give us a nice, clean installation. After cleaning up any of the excess construction adhesive, simply give it a few hours to dry. So although I'm overall happy with how the acrylic window panels on the front of my shed turned out, there were a few lessons learned. If I was doing this again, I would definitely use a thicker acrylic panel. I feel like when I used this really flimsy panel, it worked, but it deformed a little bit, and then when the light hits it a certain way, I feel like it kind of looks like a fun house. It's just a little bit off. So I would use a thicker panel if I was doing this again. Second, I would give myself a bigger overhang, probably 3/4 of an inch, just for a little bit more support and rigidity. I will say there was a bird that got caught in this shed and it was trying to fly out and it kept on hitting the windows, and they didn't break, they held up really good. But another thing you could do is you could take a piece of blocking and just install it behind the window acrylic panel. That way, in addition to the adhesive, you have a piece of wood behind it to kind of keep it in place. But those are my tips. In the next video, we're gonna go through how to install actual windows on the side of the shed. And after installing the shed windows, I'll go through another video showing how I installed the veneer on top of the shed sheathing. So if you want to see that content, subscribe down below so you don't miss out when those videos drop. If you like this video, please drop a like down below. I appreciate your support. All the other videos in this shed series are in the video description, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.